Seeking documents from a private individual who I might add tried to destroy the evidence.
I guess the question is, I guess the answer is no.
Since 2 days
ago. The answer is no.
The answer is since 2 days ago, I'm not
asking the question about since 2 days ago, although nothing prevented
That's when they first raised the concern.
Nothing prevented you from writing a letter within the last 2 days or reaching out to the White House before this.
Now you want me to be clairvoyant and read the White House's mind and write a letter before they tell us something?
Nothing prevented you from seeking these materials from the White House.
California is known
for months, Mr. Chairman. For months.
I'm not a mind reader.
I thank you for making a very clean record for any court that will look at this.
The gentleman from North Carolina said
accommodation
months ago the White House could have raised the concern, and they didn't.
These documents.
Hey, Patriots. Welcome back to Conservative Call. If you're tired of the swamp's games and want the unfiltered truth about what's happening in Washington, you're in the right place. Before we dive into today's explosive content, smash that like button and hit subscribe to join our growing army of constitutional conservatives fighting to take back America.
Gentleman from California withdraws point of order who seeks recognition. Gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, much as I don't like certain parts of the Mazars decision, it clearly applies in this case, and the committee is required to engage with the White House in order to seek an accommodation over materials held by a private party, as they were in the Mazars case, and seek to resolve this with the White House. So I would ask unanimous consent that we enter into the record your correspondence to the White House.
Without objection.
Seeking to engage them to resolve this. And I thank the chairman for not objecting. Can you produce that correspondence to the White House asking for accommodation on these materials you've sought by this subpoena?
First time they reached out to us was 2 days ago.
Yes, and of course the author expressed the concern that these materials may implicate interests of the executive. I think that was weeks ago. But having admitted without dissent your correspondence to the White House, can you produce that for us where you have sought an accommodation, where you've sought to work this out with the White House? Can you share that with us since that is now part of the record?
Well, I thought you had it. You wanted to enter into the record.
I do. I presume that, knowing your responsibilities, you have sought to engage the White House. So,
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Produce the
recognized for point of order.
I think a unanimous consent request to submit something to the record is where the person who's asking for the floor is the proponent of submitting information that member has. I don't believe it's appropriate to ask a unanimous consent request to engage in a colloquy over discovering information or obtaining information from another member of the committee.
Great, and that's why I said that no objection to the unanimous consent request. If the gentleman from California wants to talk about that and present it to us, God bless him. He's allowed to do it since 5 minutes.
I would like clarification from the chairman. Does this mean that there is no correspondence from you to the White House seeking accommodation on this material?
We've had all kinds of correspondence with the White House on this broad subject relative to the Zwanitzer and the letter we got 2 days ago. We've not corresponded with the White House yet.
And
we will, we may. That's a decision we'll make.
And you have not corresponded with the White House seeking accommodation ever since the author who you are subpoenaing and seeking to hold in contempt articulated the view that there was executive interest and potential privilege over this material. You haven't sought to engage over the weeks since you received that communication?
We have not engaged with the White House since the letter on the 25th of this month, 2 days ago.
And prior to that time, did you engage the White House in an effort to obtain these materials?
All kinds of engagements with our counsel and counsel, both
I'm talking about
the Justice Department and White House with our counsel over the last several months relative to the special counsel
this subpoena, Mr. Chairman. Did you engage with the White House at any time in the last several weeks since issuing this subpoena, the one you want to hold this witness in contempt for? Did you ever engage with the White House in an effort to accommodate, an effort to reach an agreement, an effort to prevent this from having to be litigated? Did you ever write any correspondence, make any call to the White House seeking to engage, seeking to get these materials that you're seeking from the author instead from the White House? Did you ever do that, Mr. Chairman?
We're seeking documents from a private individual who I might add tried to destroy the evidence.
I guess the question is, I guess the answer is no.
Since 2 days
ago. The answer is no.
The answer is since 2 days ago, I have not.
I'm not asking the question about since 2 days ago, although nothing
That's when they first raised the concern.
Nothing prevented you from writing a letter within the last 2 days or reaching out to the White House before this.
Now you want me to be clairvoyant and read the White House's mind and write a letter before they tell us something?
Nothing prevented you from seeking these materials from the White House.
California is known
for months, Mr. Chairman. For months.
I'm not a mind reader.
And I thank you for making a very clean record for any court that will look at this.
The gentleman from North Carolina said
an accommodation
months ago the White House could have raised the concern, and they didn't.
These documents, because your first move, of course, is to go right to contempt. Ironically, of course, for a chairman who was in contempt of his own subpoena.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
We're still waiting for you to testify and meet the obligations of your own subpoena, Mr. Chairman. But nevertheless, I appreciate you're making such a clean record for any court in this case that you have never sought an accommodation, never written to the White House, never called the White House, never had a communication with the White House in order to obtain these materials as part of an accommodation. Thank you for that very clean record for the court, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Who seeks recognition?
Back America. What we're witnessing in this congressional hearing is exactly what's wrong with Washington today. You got a California Democrat pulling every procedural trick in the book to protect the Biden administration, while a Republican chairman is trying to get to the bottom of what appears to be a cover-up involving document destruction. Let's break down what's really happening here. The Democrat representative is invoking the Mazars decision, which essentially says Congress has to play nice with the White House before issuing subpoenas. But here's the kicker. They're using this as a shield to protect someone who allegedly tried to destroy evidence. Think about that for a second. We're talking about potential document destruction, and the Democrats want to slow walk the investigation with bureaucratic nonsense. The chairman makes it clear they're dealing with a private individual who tried to destroy documents. That's obstruction of justice. Folks, but instead of letting Congress do its constitutional oversight job, we got Democrats demanding accommodation with an administration that's been stonewalling investigations from day one. What's particularly telling is how the Democrat keeps harping on this 2-day timeline. They act like the chairman should have been a mind reader and reached out to the White House before they even raised executive privilege concerns. That's not how investigations work. When you're dealing with potential criminal activity and document destruction, you don't tip off the very administration that might be implicated. The California representative keeps talking about making a clean record for courts, but what he's really doing is creating a paper trail to help the Biden administration run out the clock. This is classic Democrat obstruction tactics. They know that every day they delay is another day for evidence to disappear and witnesses to coordinate their stories. Here's what every American needs to understand. This isn't about following proper procedures. This is about protecting the Biden administration from accountability. The Democrats spent 4 years demanding investigations into Trump over everything from phone calls to classified documents. But when it comes to potential document destruction and obstruction involving their own party, suddenly they're all about accommodation and taking things slow. The chairman is absolutely right to pursue contempt proceedings. When someone destroys documents and refuses to comply with congressional subpoena, that's contempt of Congress. It doesn't matter if it's a private individual or a government official. The law is the law, and nobody should be above it. But notice how the Democrat frames this as going straight to contempt. That's gaslighting at its finest. Congressional subpoenas aren't suggestions. They're legally binding orders. When someone ignores them and destroys evidence, contempt is the appropriate response. The idea that Congress should have to negotiate with the White House before enforcing its own subpoenas is constitutional nonsense. This hearing perfectly illustrates why Americans have lost faith in our institutions. You got one party trying to do actual oversight and get to the truth, while the other party is running interference for an administration that's clearly hiding something. The fact that we're even debating whether Congress can investigate document destruction shows how far we've fallen. The bottom line is this. If you destroy documents and ignore congressional subpoenas, you should face consequences. It doesn't matter what party you belong to or who you're trying to protect. The rule of law has to mean something, or we don't have a republic anymore. Patriots, this is why your vote matters. This is why we need to keep fighting for transparency and accountability in Washington. The swamp creatures will keep protecting each other as long as we let them. But when we stand together and demand better, we can drain that swamp once and for all.